Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi there, this is Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance, where our business is the success of your business. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, facilitator, and your host of the Elevate Business podcast. The Elevate Business podcast is a journey of discovery fueled by the curiosity to genuinely understand what makes people tick when it comes to their professional path, choices made, and the personal characteristics that drive performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately success. The Elevate Business podcast is here to promote the enormous contributions of small and medium-sized businesses around the world by exploring the actions that make a workplace successful, the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of an organization, and how we build whole person performance from the ground up. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, growing our learning edges, and honoring our passions with a special guest who has elevated their business, overcome obstacles, and inspires others to do the same. So glad you're here. Hi, and a warm welcome to episode number 21 of the Elevate Business podcast. Both myself, Ange McCabe, and Scott Russ are your hosts. We have the pleasure of introducing you to Jeffrey Doucet, CEO of Thrive Career Wellness. Jeffrey's passion for empowering people within their careers led him and his business partner, Tristan, to develop a software that emphasized upskilling and reskilling, seeking to equip every job seeker with the tools they need to advance their careers by offering the best digital and traditional outplacement services to own your career. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Our pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and your journey to where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. It's been an interesting, winding road getting here today. So I started the business about 6 years ago with my business partner, Tristan. And at the time, our mission since we started has always been that we think, having a job that you love, that you care about is one of the most important things in any individual's career. We originally started our company to build software to help people look for a job when they left university and college. Mm-hmm. So we were graduates, we met each other at McMaster University, and we were frustrated with the quality of software that was offered to our peers. We knew a lot of people struggle to find their first job, and we wanted to build software to help them do so. And so our company was originally, formed under the thesis that there's a ton of opportunities out there. If people understood better skills as to how to manage their job search, track their opportunities, they'd be more productive in looking for a job. And we kind of approached the job search problem as a sales cycle, and let's build a product that looks like a sales tool to help people execute on it. And that was the first product we launched, which was called Career JSM. And we sold that product to university and college career centers, and then evolved from selling to university and college career centers to selling to career transition companies around the world. And career transition companies are companies that help people look for a job when they've been laid off or terminated by their previous employer. And then about 3 years into doing that, or 2 years into doing that, we had received a lot of feedback from our customers, talking to users, and thought, looking at the job search is a really important component to looking for jobs. There's a lot of other things that people can need or resources that can help them advance their career fundamentally. And those are things like upskilling, reskilling, improving their skill sets as an employee or a potential employee. And so that's where Thrive was born. And we launched Thrive commercially at the end of 2018, started 2019. And that's our main focus going forward. It's exciting. It's a fun company. grown tremendously. We're sitting at about 20 people right now, and I think we're hiring we have 5 or 6 roles posted. So we're going through a really interesting period of growth, and looking forward to telling you more about myself and what we do.
Fantastic.
All right, no, that's great, Jeffrey, and appreciate sharing a little bit about your background, your experience, and really what's like the evolution of how you're helping empower not just employees in terms of reskilling, but also people in the job market, and looking to see how they can really garner the skills they need to be able to get another job. And so I'm curious, even just for yourself and throughout this transition, what is it that's kind of fueled your performance along the way?
It's interesting. So I think of performance as exceeding expectations. So I think that, being delivering or meeting expectations can sometimes be easy. Expectations can be clearly defined. And I think good companies, as well as good leaders and good employees, exceed expectations. They go above and beyond, and they set ambitious goals. So for me, I'm thinking about myself as an individual, but as well as our company, one, charting where we want to be in 2-3 years, in an outcome that would really exceed expectations. Those can be, revenue targets. Those can be company size, number of users, all these things that, flow into your overall performance. And making sure those are exceeding expectations is a really important thing. And then executing on those on a day-to-day basis, fuels that performance. And I think that, sometimes it can be very simple little things that create a culture of exceeding expectations. One metric that we advertise to our customers is the response time on our live chat. We're a small company, but early on we had a culture around quick response to any live chat, and it was open in our Slack, and I myself would jump in and answer a live chat if there's nobody else available to do so. And those little things, build up an attitude to exceed those expectations. And that creates a culture that I think allows you to win, and allows you to grow quickly and make your customers really happy.
Mm-hmm. So there's a few golden nuggets in there, Jeffrey, with regards to identifying culture, the environment, the behaviors, and even the habits, and you showing up and exhibiting all of those expectations to your team members. How do you further create that environment for your team members to thrive?
I think that, with regards to performance, I think comes down to setting expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And setting expectations, and setting around who you are as a company and what performance I think means to you as a company. Tying it back to the first question, is really important. I'll give you an example of someone I didn't hire. So I was in an interview with a developer, a long time ago, and I asked them what customer service, meant to them, and what user focus meant to them. And they, explained to me how at their company, they had this great system where, bugs and issues were really aggressively categorized. And that meant that, developers could be focusing day to day on the bigger problems and not on small things that come up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was because, that might work at IBM, or Microsoft, but at a company that's our size, people, us not fixing, and where we're at compared to our competitors, our competitors have 5,000 employees, us not fixing small issues, even if they might be small, can have a dramatic, impact on performance. So one is attitude, right? And the second part, I think, is just also giving people the space to exceed expectations, to own projects, to set the expectation as to what the finished product looks like. It's tough for someone to exceed expectations if you've defined the outcomes and you haven't given them any involvement in the creative process and in how it's basically how that manifests itself. And the final part, I think, is, going back to the first comments I think I was making maybe a question or two ago, was around also context setting of the goals that we're trying to achieve, right? Because the goals that we are trying to achieve are going to naturally, attract certain types of individuals or set a context for how the company operates on a day-to-day basis, right? Like the urgency that we work, if we're trying to double our revenue every year, it's going to be a lot different than a company that's looking to grow by 10% every year. And so context setting, and yeah, I feel like I'm going on for a while, so I'll stop because I can do that.
That's great, Jeffrey. Hearing a few things there, underlying trends for you is that, as a leader, you are leading from a place of servancy, essentially. So you're helping serve your team members by showing or exhibiting the behaviors that you want to see within your organization, but then also to setting those expectations that they need to take a lead within their role, especially around that customer service piece. Because as a small business, and we relate to that, you're wearing multiple hats, and customer service means something totally different from a small business to a larger business. So having those attitudes or those soft skills coming into your organization is really key.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, you touched on something that can be very challenging as a smaller company, in the sense that, I was having this conversation actually with our team as we're setting goals for the year 3 days ago. So, some of these topics are top of mind. As a small company, we naturally have a very flat organization, and we naturally have a very collaborative work environment, which is great. And I think that we've built our company on being good at collaborating, on people not just working in their own box and working across a number of functions. But then at the same time, that can also create challenges. And when you're in a larger organization, you tend to have much more defined organizational structure. It looks a lot more like a military organization than like a flat organization.
Right.
And that's something that can be challenging, right? Because so something we were talking about a lot this year is we want a lot of collaboration, and we want a lot of to continue the cross functionality that we see, but we also want an intense performance culture around accountability, because when there's a lot of collaboration, accountability can become poorly defined. And so, giving people the space to work together while also giving people the space to step up and own projects can be a gray area there, and it can be challenging for people to sort it out, and they can sometimes be unaware. And it's funny, there's a quote I heard at the end of 2020 when I was watching a movie that, basically, in a way, highlighted some challenges I think that sometimes we had as we quickly scaled our organization. It was from a movie called like The Two Popes, which was on Netflix, and it's about the Pope Benedict and John Paul and the transfer of power. And the quote was essentially, when there's no one to blame, everyone's to blame. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot, in the sense that while we grow quickly, while we add new processes, it's so important to ensure that we still stay accountable, that individuals own certain projects so we can move quickly. I just realized that I said Pope John Paul. It was supposed to be Pope Francis and Benedict. So
that's okay.
No problem at all. No, there's a few things I was actually writing down as you were chatting there, Jeffrey. And, again, coming back to this idea of setting expectations, taking ownership, but then also having these clear goals that other people can actually have input on. So not just saying, hey, these are the goals, let's go after them, but getting input from your employees. How do you manage that, and how do you make sure everybody's kind of on the same page, moving forward towards the same goals, where we've seen other growing companies, it's easy to break off into silos or to start working in different directions?
Yeah. So I think, what you just hit on is an area that I think I've struggled with, and that I'm trying to get a lot better at. And the reason for that is, um, so when you are when you're growing really quickly, sometimes you are measuring things in weeks, in months, and like the thing that I think happens is that context changes rapidly, and context changing rapidly can really confuse team members, rightfully so, about what the priority is this week, what the priority is next week, and I think that context is easier to absorb, like the longer you've been at the company, the maybe where your role is in the organization, but it can be very challenging for the whole company when context is changing. So something that we're trying to do a lot better of, and I'm trying to do a lot better of, as we add new business partnerships, as we bring on new customers, as we continue to monetize our product in different ways, is setting the proper context as to one, why we're doing things, and then two, how this plays into like the larger strategy. Because like, don't get me wrong, there has been times that I've told a colleague, a team member, a group, this is our priority for the next month. And then like 3 days later, I get off a sales call and I'm like, this is our priority for the next month. And that can be like very discouraging, and it can be frustrating. But if you explain why, okay, well, look, like we all like working here. This is going to double our revenue, we think, or this is going to, allow us to grow our team by 2 to 3 more people because of the length of the deal or the size of the deal. Then people tend to get behind it, and they tend to understand it. Where they don't do that is when it seems like a very arbitrary dictator-like decision that isn't well thought out.
Yeah. And a lot is coming up there, which kind of leans on to whole person performance, and part of that in which Intuitive Performance does. And this isn't a plug, just an offering in the sense of performance information. But so in looking at whole person performance, especially with companies that are growing and scaling, it's really important to set objectives so that they're, you have your SMART goals within them, but also with regards to accountabilities. And the biggest thing that's coming out around that piece for me is, setting proper objectives, but then having pivots within that. And then also having your stretch goals within that. So team members will understand, out of the gate that here's where we want to go at the end of the line. But Jeffrey might be coming in, once every week or every 2 weeks, and we might be pivoting, but it's still going towards that major objective. And having those solid roots, which I feel like organically you're going towards, helps create that transparency and conversations around performance. So I think that's great.
Oh, for sure.
So Jeffrey, I know you guys have been growing over the past 2 years and grown up to about 20 employees, now onboarding another 5 employees at the moment. How have you kind of managed seeking out people that are a right fit for your organization?
Yeah, so that's a hard one, and we've definitely had swings and misses on this in the past, and we've learned from it. I think that one is, a lot of people want to work at startups or at a company that's our size, and often for like the wrong reason. Okay, and so working at a early stage company can be seen as more glamorous or innovative, or like there's going to be a ton of perks, and those might be available at technology companies that are maybe a lot larger than ours, which aren't really even startups anymore. And we found that there's certain types of people that we want to attract, right? And so there's certain types of people that can deal with fast context switching, can understand and are comfortable working in what I would call like a less structured environment. The second part to that is like we really like finding what I would call mission-oriented individuals, and mission-oriented individuals. The obvious one can be that they are very, they really resonate with our mission, our corporate mission, what we're building and our software. But that doesn't need to be every single person. Like not every single mission-oriented individual, needs to love or think that solving employment problems is the most important thing in the world. They just might be an extremely passionate person about doing their type of job really well, and they approach it with a mission type attitude. I mean, like, we've all been to like restaurants and had servers that are like mission oriented, that like truly care about doing a really good job and are great at their job, and provide a great experience and exceed those expectations through great performance. So as much as you can during the interview process, figuring out what makes someone tick, what their motivations are, and aligning the job with them is really important. And that's both pre-interview process as well as when you like hire them, right? Because like, you might have a certain person whose mission is to make a lot of money, and like, that's great. I would love to make a lot of money as well. But they're going to respond to a role and a compensation package that is designed in a certain way compared to somebody that is, has a different mission.
Mm-hmm. And what you're identifying, Jeffrey, is that your corporate culture and your beliefs and the expectations of individuals and their soft skills and the roles really aligns with what you're doing out there with your job ads, and then how you're onboarding people, and then how you're having conversations with your team members as well. So that's fantastic. I just wanted to go back for a moment there, if you don't mind. Something that was really interesting to me with regards to having the expectation of team members to pivot and to move quickly and to have agility, to utilize different soft skills, is what I was hearing around project shifts. And as a small to mid-sized business, it's almost that gray area between totally organic around what we're doing to somewheres around some structure with job descriptions versus that corporate militant, this is what you do, this is how you do it. So my question around that, Jeffrey, is, are you looking at creating project teams? So looking at skill sets within your team members and looking at the project on deck or something that's coming down the pipeline, and then basically placing those people or your team members that have those skill sets with that particular project?
Yeah, I think that, that's something we talked about a lot right now. I think we're getting close to the size where that's feasible.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's that's an interesting thing. And I think that also brings up, a challenging thing often for entrepreneurs, is the sense that, corporate best practices, management strategies, you can throw those out the window depending on the size of the business or how you're growing your business. And you need to really hone in on where you're at, right? So, right now, like a good example to that would be like right now on our technical team, we have this, certain functionalities that our development team does. One can be, setting up new customers, setting up the product for new enterprise customers, which takes up X percentage of time. The next might be overall R&D into improving the product, features, which can sit on both the job seeker side of things as well as on the enterprise side. And then the fourth part would be, infrastructure, maintenance. So like, that's our R&D team right now, right?
Right.
And right now we probably have like 3 more people than we do functions. And so, as we get to the point where we can set up, 4-person teams, like 4 functionalities, that's something we'll do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I know one of the things that came up in a previous conversation, Jeffrey, was around this idea that, running a startup, you always feel like you're short-staffed.
Yeah.
So how do you look at getting, I guess, the most out of the staff that you have, and stay focused on the priorities that aren't ever shifting?
Yeah. So, like, we have a backlog of stuff we want to do, right? And I think, I calculated that we could do no new things, or Tristan, my business partner, calculated it, and like it would take us like 18 to 24 months to like finish all the stuff we've already identified that we want to do. And like, so, again, I think that is, comes back to actually the type of person that needs to be the type of company, because you could feel overwhelmed and like you're constantly drowning with that like reality. But then the second part of it is, again, like context setting, value for money, and like always doing the things that, at the time, like can create the greatest value, right? So we might have like feature sets in the market, which is true, that you can enhance all these things and spend all of our time enhancing existing feature sets, or we might have a new thing that we believe if we add that, it opens up this whole other segment or this other big customer base. And so this is a bigger priority than that because of like the impact it has on the business. And again, that's really where it comes down to, is like context setting and value, and what has the biggest ROI. I think the challenge there is that, the things that have the biggest value are the hardest things to do. And it is always easy to almost, I would say, like pick up and work on the easier things that have the lowest ROI. So that's really what it comes down to.
And so how do you push yourself to focus on the hard things that have the greatest value rather than gravitate towards the easy things?
So that's based on where we want to be in 3-4 years. What, sometimes I think it feels like building a company. You see all the startup graphs of this nice linear graph, and it's more like these boxes, right? And you hope that every quarter or every month you can build the biggest box that takes like the biggest step forward for the company. So if we're setting a goal, and it could be like, let's say financial is one of our goals, in 3 years our revenue needs to be here. Well, we're sitting here, what's going to like allow us to make the biggest gains, right? And if we spend our time doing these small little things, we're never going to get to where we want to go.
Oftentimes we see there's opportunities to create a bit more synergy between those operational strategic objectives and our performance for our people objectives. So how do you currently bridge that right now? So you talked about boxes on a monthly or quarterly basis. How do you realize those against or within your team members on a daily or weekly basis?
So I think people improve the most by doing good work. And I think that, I kind of think, this might be a contrarian opinion, but I think like things like career management or personal development is kind of a waste of time. And the reason I think that is because if you put people in positions to take on new projects and like do new things and learn new skills, like they get better and they become worth more to your company. So you pay them more and they're happy because their career is growing, right? So for myself, when I'm like talking to some of my direct reports or we're talking about how our individuals grow, like we don't think about it as like, in the next quarter, I'm writing down that I want you to get better at X, Y, and Z. It's actually, these are business outcomes that we need to do. And you're going to learn how to do it. And that as a result is going to drive like professional and career development.
That's definitely an interesting approach. And, although you're identifying that's contrary, I would positively challenge that, Jeffrey, in that you're doing it within your organization. You're putting that focus on the training and development and doing versus hiring a third party that may not totally align with what's currently going on within the walls of your operation. So that's fantastic. Really appreciative of those insights. So what are 3 words of inspiration that you would want the world to hear?
3 words of inspiration. I don't know if I have 3 words. So actually I have here, so this is my notebook. And this is, so my girlfriend got me this for Christmas. And so I really like it. and it has my favorite quote inscribed on the back. And so it's a leather book with my favorite quote inscribed on the back. And my favorite quote is the Man in the Arena speech that Theodore Roosevelt gave. And it's quite a famous speech. And I think that, there's a part of it that, I'm not sure if I should read it out. It's like 20 words. But there's a part of it at the end that really speaks about, in summation, that, the most important thing is to get in the arena and do things. Because, it's not, you're not going to learn a lot chirping on the sidelines, and there's more honor in, either succeeding or failing greatly while doing things. And I think that is a great quote because it relates to, I think, a lot of things that we just discussed, right? In the sense that, leadership or individual growth does not come by, in my world at least, by learning about doing something. It comes by doing it. And I don't think failure is ever an acceptable outcome, but putting yourself in a position where you may fail because you don't know how you're going to do it is going to result in a lot more learnings than not. So that's my quote. I won't read the whole quote, but I would encourage anyone to look it up if you don't have it, because it's a great quote.
It is, for sure.
And what I really love about that, Jeffrey, is that, throughout the conversation and the way that you motivate your employees and the culture environment that you create for them, at least what resounded to me through the conversation was this go and do it attitude, and creating that environment to help them get in the arena, and not in the hopes of failing, but at least providing the opportunity to succeed and to be able to learn and grow from that.
Yeah, we try.
All right.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for joining us today. We really appreciate you sharing your entrepreneurial insights with Intuitive Performance and our subscribers.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. And for those of you who would like to learn more about Jeffrey's business, we're going to be providing a link to his company on our Elevate Business podcast title page. Take good care. Thank you very much for all of our subscribers to tuning in into another great episode of the Elevate Business podcast. Take good care. Thanks for listening to the Elevate Business podcast. I hope you enjoyed the program. You can subscribe to future podcasts at intuitiveperformance.com, where you can also sign up for webinars and learn more about professional coaching and our facilitation solutions available to help fire up your whole person performance skills and drive actions for success. Until next time, stay true to you and take care of each other. We are all better together. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.